thanks to everyone who is making this opportunity happen. And we have Darrell. Darrell, you have 5 minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're the best doggone candidate that we ought to be considering voting for. Floor is yours.
Hey, good afternoon, and thank you all very much for this wonderful opportunity. And as mentioned, my name is Darrell Williams, and it's really an honor to be here today. This is a lot of times people, every candidate has mentioned Ron Johnson, but let me just tell you, the most important person in this election is not Ron Johnson. It's every Wisconsinite, and that's why I decided to run for this position. I was born in the cotton fields of Abbeville, Mississippi. Didn't have running water till I was 16 years old. I used to pick cotton for 2 of 100. That's $2 for every 100 pounds of cotton. I learned the value of hard work at a very, very young age. My mother raised 6 kids off of $3.35 an hour. I realized the importance of a family supporting job because I never had one. I decided my mother couldn't pay for us to go to school, so I joined the Army when I was 16 years old, went on to serve this country and this state in the Wisconsin National Guard for 29 years and served in two wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, received the Purple Heart and Bronze Star Medal. I came here to teach. I've been a teacher here inside of this, in Wisconsin and Milwaukee Public Schools for 22 years, went on to be interim superintendent of schools in Beloit, Wisconsin, was humbled to be selected as our National Principal of the Year. And after a tour in Afghanistan, I came back and I was appointed by Governor Evers as emergency manager for the state of Wisconsin. And the emergency management, that is the lead state agency that deals with all natural and man-made disasters and also serves as the heartbeat of the COVID-19 response and also civil unrest action within the state of Wisconsin. So in those roles, that has taken me all over the state of Wisconsin and interacted with various people. And this is the needs of the people is what made me decide to run for this position. Not just all the people who I know because I live in Milwaukee, but those people who are in those poor areas across the state that remind me of where I grew up. Sometimes this is not about black and white. Sometimes it's about class. And everybody, whether you have $1 million or a dime, they want their voices to be heard. It's about our veterans. It's about better health care. It's about bridging this racial divide within our state and across this country, restoring the trust and confidence within our law enforcement and our community. And I'm a strong supporter of law enforcement. It's about investing in our kids who we say are our future, but we invest the least in. We have to work with our teachers and get higher pay and insurance. All of these things are important. And this is about somebody with some knowledge, skills, and experience and background in many of these areas that's really key to us, that's going to be critical to us in the U.S. Senate seat. And my question to anybody would be this. At the end of the day, don't you want somebody, when those issues are being discussed at the highest levels of our government, don't you want somebody with some knowledge, skills, and background sitting at the table representing the state of Wisconsin? And there's nobody that's sitting on this panel or anywhere else with the knowledge, skills, and background that I have that would best represent Wisconsin in this U.S. Senate seat, and that's why I decided to run.
And this time I'll unmute myself. I get it right once. When you have the chance to go around the state of Wisconsin, obviously a number of issues appeal to people no matter where they are. When you talk about family issues and the like, since your audience here tonight is southwestern Wisconsin, primarily, are there specific things that you have learned about with Southwest Wisconsin, or that you would address that you feel would be specifically of interest to this area? And what would those be? And what are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I think specifically and commonly, some of the issues that people are really concerned about. People are concerned about they want somebody inside that U.S. Senate seat who's going to do what they say they're going to do, somebody who can work on both sides of the aisle, and somebody, forget Republican or Democrat, but somebody who is a human being who can relate to their issues and concerns. People with children, they want better education for their kids. They want to see someone who truly invests in them. They want quality foods in their stores, not just in the wealthy areas of town. They want fresh fruit and all those things right there. They want lower gas prices. They want a family supporting job, not a handout, but they want a fair shot at the American dream. And they want to be able to pay for their child care bills and pay their bills and have a little bit of money to take a vacation with their families every once in a while. And I don't think that that's too much to ask to be in the wealthiest country in the world. And I think those are things that are really key. I think our farmers, as much as they have supported us across this nation and within this state, the time that they most needed us is during the time of COVID. They wanted that support, more support for them. It's almost like that Rocky saying, we want our country to love us just as much as we love it. We want our farmers and our people want our legislators to love them just as much as they love us, especially at the time when they come around and want our vote. This is important.
Let me ask, here's a question that as a veteran, how do you understand the role of U.S. military in foreign policy? Because obviously this is something as a veteran you have a unique perspective on. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think this is very important. And in my role, like I said, I was in 2 war zones, and then in Afghanistan, I had the opportunity to work with our NATO allies around the world there, and had a firsthand unique experience with that. And if you recall, whenever the Afghan nationals came to Fort McCoy, I'm one who supported that, because the body count would have been a lot higher if they had not supported us. But we also can't forget about our veterans who have fought those wars and their families right around the corner from your house. We have to find ways to support them as well. But also, we also have to take a look, at the funding piece. I know people say that there's too much funding in the Department of Defense budget, and granted, there's a lot of money. But I tell you, we have to make sure that we remain the greatest fighting force in the world. And we can't overlook the fact of what our previous president, the torn relationships that has occurred because of his leadership. People value respect. People want to be able to live in peace. But at the same time, we have to be able to work together as one. We have to support our NATO allies, especially in the time of what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. I support Ukraine to the fullest. I believe that the sanctions should have come a lot faster. You can't allocate these sanctions out week by week, especially with someone who's untrustworthy as Putin. You have to go ahead and drop the hammer down from the beginning and make a statement and let the world know that America is still the greatest fighting force in the world.
Now, one of the questions that was brought up earlier, or comments, was when you win the primary, not if, it's of course every candidate goes, it's when you win the primary, and you're in a televised debate with current Senator Ron Johnson. What would your closing statement be? What's the last line that you want to have an audience hear, and that's going to convince them that you're going to be the person they're going to vote for in that general election?
What I'm going to tell the people is he's not the most important person in this election, is that you are. Every Wisconsinite, they're the most important person. If we can agree that the issues that are most important to us at this time, not the only issues, but key issues, are education of our kids, what's going on with the war in Russia and Ukraine, the homeland security of our nation, what's going on with COVID-19, what's going on with racial injustice across this nation, what's going on within our prisons and so forth, and how they're votes are being suppressed, and especially if they don't have felonies, they should be allowed and have access to vote. The voter suppression that's happening right here, and it was mentioned earlier about a deficit of courage. That's a deficit of courage right here on this panel. We have to make sure that even on the televised debate, even with the one that's coming up on Channel 12 next week, if you don't have $250,000, you cannot be a part of the televised debate. We have to have the courage to stand together as one. And what that does is suppresses the vote of many people within this state who are looking. The same Marquette poll says there's 36% of the people who are looking for to hear those debates and make an informed decision. Those people's rights are being suppressed because they're not going to get a chance to see and hear from those candidates. I am the type of person, if with that type of knowledge, skills, and background sitting at the table, when those issues are being discussed at the highest levels of our government, don't you want somebody with the knowledge, skills, and some type of background in those areas, and someone with the courage to lead, even when nobody else is looking?
One of the questions that always comes up is, how do we make those kinds of differences? I mean, how do we reach across the aisle, and do people truly take us seriously? You've been, on the campaign trail. You've been meeting with a lot of people and listening to them and also talking to them about your plans. The question I have of you is, what has surprised you the most? Because every candidate brings a certain perspective to a campaign. And then when you're on the trail, it's a learning process as well. What things have you learned on this campaign trail thus far?
Well, a couple of things that really surprised me. One is the amount of people who say that we're not political, but the next thing you know, you find out they're being very political. But especially when it comes to the televised debate and getting the people's the vote out, people who strongly encourage and say in front of the camera that they are against voter suppression, but won't stand against voter suppression tactics that are being played out right before their very eyes. But and so those are things that are key to me. The other side of the coin is it's really been surprising but uplifting that wherever I go, especially whenever we're talking Republican and Democrats, and I've had the opportunity to speak in front of large audiences of both sets. And the most important thing is that people really care about are issues. They care about the issues. I'll never forget this conversation I had with a person up in Janesville, Wisconsin, and the person said to me he was really radical in his stance as a Republican and so forth. And I just asked him, I said, man, what makes you such a diehard Republican and against the Democrats and so forth? What did you hear me say that got you in such an uproar? And he said, well, it wasn't anything that you just said, but he said, he says, all these Democrats come up with these social programs to take away my money that I worked so hard for. I don't want to work 30 years and then some Democrat come and take my money for a social program. And I said, well, man, me neither. I don't know any human being who worked 30 years that want all of their money to be taken for any social program. I said, but if there was 100 people, homeless people laying on the streets of Janesville, Wisconsin, and we could take $5 from every citizen to help address that issue, provide housing, provide mental health services, and get them off the street and provide a quality of life for everybody, don't you think that's important? And he said, yes. And I said, then we on the same team. I said, because the rising tide lifts us all. And I said, that's what it's about. And so whenever you really get down to the issues, I think we are more alike than we are different. You're on mute.
Boy, I'm good at that. You'd think I could get trained, right? When you get elected United States Senator from the state of Wisconsin, other than celebrate, which is certainly going to be your due, What is going to be the first issue that you feel that you want to address as the new senator?
I think the first issue that we need to get across is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We have to go back and look at Roe v. versus Wade as well. And I mean, when you say first, I'm telling you, they're right up there at the top. And and to be honest with you, that has such a personal meaning to me. I was born in the backwoods of Abbeville, Mississippi, in the cotton fields, and I'm gonna tell you, Black people, when I grew up, you couldn't go to the hospital to be born. I was born by a midwife, and the thing about it was those people who made the decision, or because of lack of health care and other services, they used a clothes hanger to cease their pregnancy. We don't want to go back there to that type of behavior. We don't have to do that. And I think it is so important that the women's right to choose be codified. And now it's going to take double the work to go in there and make it happen. And it's going to take more work than ever anticipated to go back and reverse that decision. But I believe that we can get it done. And I believe that I'm the person who can work on both sides of the aisle to get that done.
Dr. Williams, many of our participants and listeners tonight want to find out more about you and your campaign. How do they best do that? Where on the web, or how do they contact you?
Two ways. One thing you can do is go on to williamsworksforwisconsin.com. That is our website. Again, that's www.williamsworksforwisconsin.com. The second thing that everyone listening could do is call these news stations who are having these these televised debate statewide, and you tell them that 36% of the Wisconsinites want to see the debate from all of the candidates, not just the 3 or 4 that they're trying to highlight, so they can make an informed decision on who they want to vote for. If you do not do that, that's a legal form of voter suppression. And I want to say to all these candidates who are sitting up here on this panel, and you swear that you are against voter suppression, if you want the voters to be informed, we have to make sure that we stand together as one, especially as a Democratic Party, and say we want everybody on the stage or nobody on the stage. Because if you don't, you're actually a part of the very voter suppression that you're swearing that you are against. And I'll leave you with this question. How can our voters' votes really count when they're not being allowed to hear and see we're not being allowed to see the faces and hear the voices of the people they're being asked to vote for?
Well, we're glad you were able to join us here tonight and be a part of this program. And thank you for all of your comments and your hard work as a candidate.